first Shrek movie was released in 2001, which makes this year its 20th anniversary. That's right, we are all old. A generation is defined as 20 to 30 years, basically the time it takes for an ugly baby to grow up and have their own ugly babies. So one generation later, how has Shrek aged? Shrek is no stranger to inserting pop culture references, something especially present in the sequels.
We got a white Bronco heading east into the forest.
That's a reference to O.J. Simpson being a murderer.
Police brutality! Police brutality!
But I was curious to see how the first film specifically measures up after 20 years. Does it still hold up? Let's find out, using maths. No, wait, come back! Well, we combed through the entire movie and pulled apart every single reference we could find, no matter how obscure. Is this a reference to Vor?
Oh, wait. What the hell?
Let's begin with Once Upon a Time. Do fairy tales count as pop culture references? Kinda? Fairy tales and nursery rhymes stem from folklore, which is a form of pop culture. After all, they were new at some point, but have since been infused with so much tradition, custom, celebration, and identity. Now they are woven into society as an integral part of our childhood. Shrek has appearances from Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, Pinocchio and Geppetto, The Three Little Pigs, this fucking thing, and many other staples of fantasy creatures. Prince Charming as well, although this is before Shrek 2, so he's just a vague fairy tale reference at this point. There's also this unicorn, which, whilst a non-specific mythical creature, it is the only one, so therefore it may be a reference to the last unicorn. So there's a sense that most kids who are old enough to see a PG movie will not only recognise most if not all of these characters, but also recognise how they've been altered, such as the three bears seen together at the start, then later only Papa and Baby Bear are seen at the swamp, with Mama Bear turned into a rug. Damn, I've heard of kicking the dog, but furnishing the bear is the next level of evil. It's rumoured that the reason Donkey can talk is because he's one of the boys from Pinocchio's Pleasure Island who gets turned into a donkey, which is a fun theory, except Donkey says this.
I mean, I do like the outdoors. I'm a donkey. I was born outside.
So that really furnishes the bear of that theory. Other fairy tales get represented via quotes and references like Jack and the Beanstalk,
grind his bones to make your bread. You know, the whole ogre trip.
And Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh, what large teeth you have!
As well as tropes like Happily Ever After and A True Love's Kiss, stemming from Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, and wow, that's a lot of men kissing sleeping women. What do girls get other than frogs? No, wait, frogs are great. Okay, girls win. There's a mention of Babes in the Wood.
Then you showed up and bam! They was tripping over themselves like babes in the woods.
This is a children's tale about two small kids whose parents died and are left with a cruel uncle who instructs two men to take them into the woods and kill them. But the children escape and run into the woods and grow up to be heroes. No, wait, I mean they die anyway. Yeah. And then robins cover their bodies with leaves so they are never found. Bloody hell, literature, what's wrong with you? Several murders are named after this tale, and it has since entered folklore as being possibly based on a true story, and the ghosts haunt the woods to this day. Anyway, back to the funny ogre movie. This film is a parody of many Disney elements, which follows Jeffrey Katzenberg's bitter departure from Disney in 1994 to form DreamWorks. After all, DreamWorks' first movie, Ants, was made just to get into cinemas before A Bug's Life. So much of early DreamWorks was motivated by spite. So it makes sense that Shrek would be a dig at the animation juggernaut. It is speculated that Lord Farquaad, is based on former Disney CEO Michael Eisner. But this comparison to a vapid and self-centered villain who captures and tortures fairytale creatures just to grow his theme park-like empire is unverified. It's probably just a coincidence that Farquaad's logo looks a lot like the Disney font. Or the Facebook logo, actually. Maybe the real villain was Mark Zuckerberg the whole time. Yeah, that scans. Is this film anti-Disney? Do these eggs kinda look like Mickey ears to you? Is Shrek roasting the rat here? Maybe, maybe not. In Shrek, the Kingdom of Duloc is straight up Disneyland, something that's still incredibly popular now. Well, maybe not right now.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
No thank you! You're scary!
The flower bed, the souvenirs, the mascots, the car park, and the Welcome to Duloc stand being a parody of It's a Small World. Even the taking the photo after the ride, because you can't have fun unless it's monetized. Just like being a YouTuber. But what about the Disney movies? The film begins and ends with a storybook being opened and closed, which is a direct reference to the classic fairy tale Disney movies like Snow White and Cinderella. In fact, this pair of princesses crop up a few times in Farquaad's dating simulator and at the end to Catch the Bouquet. This dwarf's name must be Horny because he is super into this. Obviously these characters exist as fairy tales, but so much has been consumed by Disney that it's more likely to be known as a Disney property first and foremost. For example, we see the 3 good fairies from Sleeping Beauty, colour-coded as they are from the movie. But how do we know this is a Disney reference and not just a general fairy tale reference? Because the original story has 7 fairies, with an evil 8th fairy who becomes Maleficent. The magic mirror is exactly like Disney's, and Fiona singing to the animals is a full-on parody. In fact, to be an anti-Disney subversion, doesn't it require a general awareness of Disney? Like when Shrek does specific references to Pinocchio,
I'm not a puppet, I'm a real boy.
Peter Pan,
He can fly!
He can fly!
and Dumbo.
You might have seen a house fly, maybe even a super fly, but I bet you ain't never seen a donkey fly.
Do these quotes land anymore? In fact, if you consider the specific Disney movie references Shrek makes, the most modern movie it spoofs is Sleeping Beauty, which came out in 1959. Even The Little Mermaid doesn't appear until Shrek 2. While Disney have maintained the availability of their legacy movies thanks to Disney Plus, have had the princesses turn up in Wreck-It Ralph 2, and have been turning some into live-action remakes, the original movies aren't all that relevant anymore. For kids today, their introduction to Disney princesses in the past 20 years is probably more likely to be Frozen, and Moana, Tangled and Brave. So these Disney elements require a lot more homework to be appreciated. One possible exception is Beauty and the Beast, which gets name-dropped.
The beauty's with the beast, it makes me awfully mad.
And you could argue that the ending elevated transformation sequence is almost exactly like the 1991 movie, with the subversion being that she stays in the monster form. No. Turn him back! Turn him back! Shrek doesn't just pull references from Disney and fairy tales.
God bless us, everyone!
Shrek's fight scene incorporates a lot of wrestling moves, and Fiona's fight against the Merry Men pulls influences from Enter the Dragon, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and of course, Kung Pao. No wait, Deuce Bigelow. No wait, Scary Movie. No wait, every Newgrounds animation in the early 2000s. No wait, I got it, Space Jam 2.
Oh!
My problem with this is that it's such an oversaturated reference that its deliberate placement here is pure fan service. Other references like Donkey running like the Endor chase scene, the rope bridge reminiscent of Indiana Jones, the dragonfly evoking Neverending Story, these all work just fine with or without knowing the reference. It's more subtle, like if you know, you know. You know? It's not that I hate this bit, it's just a little jarring because it's such an obvious and specific reference to a movie that came out in 1999. Like, I wonder how this line works.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
If you've never seen Babe.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
And some lines are a reference, but you wouldn't even need to know it was.
You a mean green fighting machine. Together we'll scare to spit out anybody that crosses us.
You're a lean, mean, fighting machine!
Speaking of lines, there's some in-jokes in relation to the actors, like Eddie Murphy.
You definitely need some Tic Tacs or something, because your breath stinks.
In my pocket, it's a whole thing of Tic Tacs. Take as many as you like, please.
Don't mess with me, I'm the stair master. I've mastered the stairs.
I am the stair master!
And Mike Myers.
All right, you're going the right way for a smack bottom.
This is a reference to Madonna's Beautiful Stranger from the soundtrack of Austin Powers 2.
You're going the right way for a smack bottom.
I hope so.
It was also used in a deleted scene.
You're going the right way for a smack bottom.
He just really likes smacking bottoms. Famously, Shrek was going to be voiced by Chris Farley, but when he died in 1997, Mike Myers took his place, later requesting to redo the whole thing in Scottish. This would allow Myers to make the role more of his own, but there is a subtle reference to Chris Farley with this air quote gesture from his SNL sketches. Also on the TV, the Magic Mirrors game show is a reference to The Dating Game, a blind date show that ran from the 70s to the 90s. And while other dating TV shows exist, it's a familiar format, so we do recognise what's happening. The colourful splotches make it specifically The Dating Game, which should mean that it comes under as an outdated reference, except it came back in 2021, splotches and all. After years and years of nothing, it suddenly became relevant again, just like my YouTube career. Anyway, Smash Mouth. I'm not going to dwell on the soundtrack too much, but yeah, let's dwell on All Star. All Star by Smash Mouth was released in 1999, but it wasn't made for Shrek. The song first appears in Inspector Gadget in July of 99, and then in Mystery Men 1 month later, the latter of which became the music video. So if you're wondering why Ben Stiller is in your meme song, that's why. It was only put into Shrek's opening credits as a placeholder song to be replaced later, but it just felt right. And thanks to internet culture, the song has been kept alive and well. Smash Mouth were hesitant to allow DreamWorks to use the song, but after they were given an early screening, they not only agreed to the song being used, but they also agreed to perform a brand new cover song for the finale, I'm a Believer. Okay, so this is weird, right? I'm a Believer is a Neil Diamond song, but although he recorded it first, he didn't publish it until 1967. The Monkees covered the song and released it in 1966. So, the cover song came out before the song it was covering. Weird, right? And it appears in Austin Powers 2. Anyway, Smash Mouth cover it too, right? And it has this oi part.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales.
But if you look at Smash Mouth's music video,
Fairy tales.
the oi is gone, and it's not on the soundtrack either. The only place the oi appears is in the movie. But why is it here? This has bugged me for years, and it wasn't until researching this video did I find out why. In 1995, British comedians Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer, along with EMF, covered the song, and guess what? They oi! The oi stems from late 70s British punk music, so it's easy to see why Vic and Bob worked it in, but how did it wind up in Shrek? So this is speculation, but they probably wanted a more upbeat version of the song than the Monkees version. It's for the film's finale after all, so Smash Mouth was the best fit, but like how All Star was a temp song, they would have needed a temp song for this scene until Smash Mouth finished making their cover. So in comes Vic and Bob's version, and the filmmakers obviously became quite attached to it because they redid the oi, just to keep it in. Even Eddie Murphy's ending part is, again, not in Smash Mouth's version. But it is in Vic and Bob's version. It's just crazy to me that the frying pan guys are referenced in Shrek, and as far as I can see, totally uncredited. During the I'm a Believer ending, there's a bunch of dance references. Pinocchio is doing the twist, Cinderella is ballroom dancing just like her movie, while Snow White, Papa Bear and the Big Bad Wolf are disco dancing from Night Fever. There's the Can-Can, Limbo, breakdancing, the Bloody Macarena, and Donkey with Shades resembling Ray Charles. Donkey, of course, references a lot more music. Superfly by Curtis Mayfield.
Maybe even a Superfly.
On the Road Again by Willie Nelson.
The road again. Sing it with me, Shrek.
Try a Little Tenderness by Otis Redding.
You got to try a little tenderness.
And Friends by Bette Midler.
There's no one to deride me, but you gotta have friends.
Stop singing!
Friends is the closing song of The Last of Sheila in 1973 and then appears again in 1998's One True Thing. Both movies I have never seen, but since Shrek, it has not appeared in movies or TV other than documentaries about it. I think for many in this 20-year generation, they will have only heard this song in Shrek. So it's a lost reference.
She's a loaded pistol who likes pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
Unlike the Pina Colada song, which has maintained its relevance thanks to memorable appearances in movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. Not every musical reference is meant to have a known origin, like the rim shot.
Although she lives with 7 other men, she's not easy.
And Little Donkey.
Listen, Little Donkey.
The dwarfs sing a mix of Disney's Hi-Ho to the Song of the Vulgar Boatman. And the Robin Hood song is packed with references. The scene opens with this. This is the Minsky Pickup, a vaudeville burlesque fanfare to indicate wacky fun times ahead, and it's used everywhere. Bushes and the Friar on the Swing is very musical theatre. There's the river dance to the tune of Turkey in the Straw. The river dance is still going, but has reduced in popularity since the early 2000s. Although it came out as an animated movie this year for some reason. By the way, why is Robin Hood, a hero of English folklore, French? Once you remove the pop culture references, a lot of what's left is influences. Not meant to mean anything, but just because it's always been this way.
For the love of peace.
This is probably referencing St. Peter, and
Hold the phone.
a bit of technology Shrek shouldn't know about is a reference to news reporters at phone booths, but we're not expected to know that. Also, kids are always holding their phones. Haha, maybe we're the real virus. That's right, it's me, I'm Banksy. Ultimately, these are just turns of phrase. Like the onions have layers line may or may not be a reference to the 1800s play by Henrik Ibsen. But even if it is, you're probably not meant to get that, unless you happen to be 200 years old. Likewise, movie tropes like the slow-mo action run or the interrogation scene, these are just tradition at this point, like the traditions of fairy tales. Robin Hood speaking French may have had influence from English nobility in the Middle Ages that spoke French after the Norman conquest. So, Robin Hood, traditionally from noble heritage, would logically speak French too, but it's unlikely that that's why. Shrek is full of accents, from Scottish Shrek, British blind mice, German pigs, so a French Robin Hood is mainly there to be a silly, funny accent amongst others, playing with stereotypes, another tradition in comedy, but one that doesn't always age very well. But let's look at its main inspiration. Shrek, with the exclamation mark, is the 1990 children's book by William Steig. Shrek is a Yiddish word, which itself is derived from the German word Schreck, to mean fear or frighten. In the book, he is kicked out by his ogre parents to see the world and make something of himself, which isn't in the film, but it is in the musical.
I am not a puppet, I'm a real boy.
I don't want to talk about the musical. Sure, there's commonalities such as an ogre with green skin, a swamp, a talkative donkey, a dragon, and an ugly princess, but while this Shrek is way meaner and crueler, the general theme of self-esteem is kind of there. What is more present is the subversion to the normal fairy tale, which Shrek absolutely pulls off. William Steig also wrote Sylvester and the Magic Pebble, a story about a donkey who finds a pebble who grants wishes and accidentally turns himself into a boulder, which may have inspired this line.
I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.
So, how has Shrek aged? Well, let's look at the data. As you can see, the majority of the references place a heavy reliance on pop culture. And because of that, these elements do date the movie. Something that I think is more apparent in Shrek 2 and 3 before Shrek 4 reins them back in. However, while some elements haven't aged well, like this fucking thing, Shrek still manages to remain fun, charming, and subversive of the elements it was born from. Perhaps some of the classic Disney elements will be lost on the generation since it came out, but I think telling a sincere story about finding your own happily ever after is one that I think will continue to resonate for a long time to come. But how does Shrek age after 100 years? Let's find out! What about 50 years? 1 year? Ah, just take me home! Oh, phew. Oh, god damn it! Ah!
Swamp, 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 I'm an ogre!
Special thanks to this month's mega big fans: Ashley Kinder, Molel Kasemi, Cavan Green, Sloan Schoolcraft, Setsune Wave, Salix, Harry Potter, Paul Nipmeyer, Decker Dane, Joel Jennings, Aaron is Chummy, Brett Halford, Nathan Charwinati, Matthew Smith, Cam Wantley, and Mark Hunter. We captured as many references as we could. We undoubtedly missed some, but hopefully it doesn't skew the data too massively. But I'll be releasing the data on my Patreon page, so if you would like to support me, then please consider doing so on Patreon.